The alarm bells rang across every space station humanity had built. In the command center floating above Earth, Captain Minu stared at the screens with growing concern. The readings made no sense. They showed a fleet so large that it blocked out the stars behind it. "How many ships?" Minu asked. 2,000, sir," answered Lieutenant, his voice shaking. "Maybe more. Our systems can't count them all." Minu had been a soldier for 20 years. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion. He had defended the outer colonies from pirates, but he had never seen anything like this. No human had. Doctor rushed into the command center. She was Earth's lead scientist and diplomat. Her tablet glowed with incoming messages from across the galaxy. "The Galactic Council is calling," she said. "They want to speak with us immediately." Minu nodded. "Put them through." The screen filled with alien faces. Some had scales, some had fur, some looked like nothing Minu could describe, but they all looked afraid. The council speaker, a tall creature with 4 arms, spoke first. "Humans of Earth, you have our sympathy. The Dominion has sent their supreme commander. He is coming for you." "Who is this commander?" asked. The aliens looked at each other. Finally, an old creature with silver skin spoke. "His name is, he has lived for 50,000 years. He has conquered 10,000 worlds. No one has ever defeated him. No one has ever survived his judgment." Minu felt cold. "What does he want with us?" "He will decide if your species deserves to live," the speaker said, "or if you should be destroyed. We are sorry. There is nothing we can do. Answers to no one." The screen went dark. For a moment, no one in the command center spoke, then said, "Sir, what do we do?" Minu looked around at his crew. They were young. Earth had only been traveling in space for 200 years. They had explored maybe 30 star systems. They had met a few alien species and traded goods. They thought they were doing well. Now they learned the truth. Humanity was nothing. They were children playing in a small corner of a vast and dangerous universe. "We prepare," Minu said. "Get every ship we have ready, every weapon, every soldier." "Sir," said quietly, "our entire fleet couldn't stop even one of their ships. I've read the reports. Once destroyed a planet by himself, just him. No weapons, no army, just him." "Then we'll die fighting," Minu said. "Better than dying on our knees." 3 days passed. The alien fleet sat in Earth's orbit, silent and waiting. Then, on the 4th day, a single ship broke away from the fleet. It was small and black and moved like a shark through water. It landed in Seoul, South Korea, in the middle of the old city square. Millions of people watched on their screens. Minu and flew down to meet it, along with 50 soldiers. The ship's door opened, smoke poured out, then he appeared. Was tall, maybe 7 feet. He wore armor that seemed to be made of darkness itself. His face was hard and sharp like it had been cut from stone. His eyes glowed with a pale blue light. When he walked, the ground cracked under his feet. He looked at the soldiers, at their guns and armor. Then he laughed. It was not a kind sound. "These are your warriors," said. His voice was deep and cold. "These children with toys." Minu stepped forward. "I am Captain Minu. I speak for Earth. Why have you come here?" Studied him. "I have come to judge you. Your species is young and weak. You spread through space without permission. You make noise. You draw attention. The galaxy does not need more weak things cluttering it up." "We have a right to exist," said. "Rights," smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Rights are for the strong. You are not strong. Prove me wrong." "How?" Minu asked. "Fight me," said. "Send your best warrior. If they can land one hit on me, I will leave your world alone. If they cannot, I will decide your fate." Minu looked at, she shook her head slightly. This was suicide, but what choice did they have? "I will fight you," Minu said. Nodded. "Good, you have courage at least. Begin when you are ready." Minu drew his weapon. It was a plasma blade, the best technology Earth had. He had trained with it for 15 years. He had never lost a fight. He attacked. Minyu was fast. He moved like water, striking from 3 angles at once, but was faster. He didn't even move his feet. He just swayed slightly, and every strike missed. Then's hand shot out and grabbed Minyu by the throat. Minyu felt himself lifted off the ground. He couldn't breathe. Held him there for a long moment, looking into his eyes. "Is this the best humanity has?" asked. Then he threw Minyu down. Minyu hit the ground hard. His ribs cracked. Pain shot through his body. The soldiers raised their weapons but shouted for them to stop. Minyu lay there beaten. He couldn't move. But then he did something strange. He smiled. Stared at him. "Why do you smile? You have lost. Your world is at my mercy." Minyu coughed. Blood came out, but he kept smiling. "Because you came down here yourself. You could have destroyed us from orbit, but you came down. You wanted to see us, to understand us. That means maybe we're worth something after all." For the first time, his expression changed. Just for a second, something flickered in those glowing eyes. Confusion, or perhaps curiosity. "Interesting," said softly. "Very interesting." He turned too. "I will stay on your world for a time. I will observe you, your people, your cities, your lives. Then I will decide if you deserve to live." "How long?" asked. "As long as it takes," said. He began walking toward the city. "Show me what makes humans think they matter. Show me why I should not erase you from existence." As he walked away, helped Minyu to his feet. "Sir, what just happened?" Minyu watched disappear into the crowd. "I don't know, but we just bought ourselves some time. Maybe that's enough." Looked worried. What if showing him who we are just convinces him to destroy us? "Then at least we'll die as ourselves," Minyu said, "not pretending to be something we're not." Above them, 2,000 ships waited in the darkness of space. And on Earth, humanity held its breath, waiting to see if they would see another sunrise. Walked through Seoul alone. No guards, no weapons visible. He didn't need them. People stared at him as he passed. Some took pictures. Some ran away. Children pointed and whispered to their parents. He had expected fear. He had seen it on 10,000 worlds. Fear was normal. Fear was smart. But these humans did something strange. After the fear, they went back to their lives. A man sold fruit on the corner. He had watched defeat their captain. He had seen the alien who could destroy worlds. But now he was back to selling apples and oranges, calling out prices to customers. Stopped in front of him. "You saw what I am. Why do you not run?" The fruit seller looked up. He was old, maybe 70. "Run where? This is my home. These are my people. If you're going to destroy us, running won't help. Might as well sell fruit." He held out an apple. "Want one? First one's free for visitors." Stared at the apple. When was the last time someone had offered him something without fear? He couldn't remember. He took the apple and walked on. Doctor followed him at a distance. Minyu was in the hospital, recovering from broken ribs. So it was her job to watch, to learn what she could, to try to understand what he wanted. Stopped at a school. Children played in the yard, laughing and chasing each other. A teacher, a young woman named, stood watching them. She saw and went pale, but she didn't run. She stepped between him and the children. "Can I help you?" asked. Her voice shook, but she stood firm. "You are afraid," said. "Yes, but you stand in my way anyway." "They're children," said simply. "Someone has to." Looked past her at the playing children. They didn't understand danger. They just knew joy. "Do you think you could stop me?" "No," said, "but I would try." Studied her for a long moment. Then he walked away. Ran to, checking if she was okay. The teacher was crying now that the danger had passed, but she was still standing. That night stood on top of the tallest building in Seoul. He could hear the city below. Millions of lives all going on despite his presence. On other worlds, his arrival meant silence. Cities would empty. Planets would go dark, hopping he wouldn't notice them. But not here. Here lights blazed, music played, people laughed in restaurants, couples held hands in parks. It was like they had decided that if these were their last days, they would live them fully. Ate the apple the old man had given him. It was good. He couldn't remember the last time he had eaten something that wasn't a ration or a nutrient pack. It had been thousands of years since food meant anything more than fuel. The next day went to Mumbai. He had read it was one of Earth's largest cities. He wanted to see more of these humans, to understand what made them different. He found at a fire station was a rescue worker, 32 years old, strong and quick. When the alarm rang, followed them to a burning building. And his team ran inside, watched from outside. The building was falling apart. Smoke poured out. Any logical being would let it burn, would accept that those inside were already dead. But ran back out carrying a child, then went back in, came out with an old woman, went back in again, and again, until his uniform was burned and his skin was blistered and his lungs were full of smoke. When it was over, collapsed. The medics rushed to help him, walked over. Why? Asked. You could have died, those people were strangers. Looked up at him through exhausted eyes. That's why strangers need help most. Family helps family, but strangers, they only have us. Didn't understand. In his empire the weak died. That was nature, that was order. The strong survived, the strong ruled. Helping the weak only made society weaker. But these humans ran toward danger to save weakness. It made no sense. Doctor found him that evening. She had been following him for 3 days now. You're trying to understand us, she said. Yes. And you are confusing, said. You are weak. You know you are weak, but you act like you are strong. You have been in space for only 200 years. We have species in the Council who have traveled the stars for 1,000,000 years. Yet you think you deserve to exist beside them. Smiled. It's not about deserving, it's about being. We exist. We feel, we love, we hope. That's enough. Hope for what? You will die, all of you. Your sun will burn out in a few billion years. Your species will end. Everything you build will turn to dust. What is the point? The point is the time we have, said. My grandmother died last year. She was 90 years old. She knew she would die, we all know. But she lived every day like it mattered. She taught children. She helped neighbors. She loved her family. When she died, the world was better because she had been in it. That's the point. Said nothing. He had lived for 50,000 years. He would live for 50,000 more. But had he ever made anything better? Or did he just conquer and destroy and move on? The next day he went to a hospital, had told him about it. A place where sick children stayed. Didn't understand why humans wasted resources on weak children who might die anyway, but he wanted to see. He met there. She was 7 years old, thin and pale, with bright eyes. She was dying of a disease the doctors couldn't cure. She had maybe 3 months left. Wasn't afraid of him. She was too young to understand what he was. She just saw someone tall and interesting. Are you an alien? She asked. Yes. Cool, I've never met an alien before. Do you have a spaceship? I have many. What's space like? Is it pretty? Sat down beside her bed. He couldn't remember the last time he had sat. Yes, there are nebulas that shine with 1,000,000,000 colors, stars being born, galaxies spinning like wheels of light. I wanted to be an astronaut, said, but I got sick. I won't get to see space now. Does that make you sad? Sometimes, but my mom says I should be happy for the days I have. She says every sunrise is a gift. I try to remember that. Then asked him a question that would haunt him. Do stars hurt when they die? Stared at her. In 50,000 years, no one had asked him that. Why do you ask? Because everything dies, right? You, me, even stars. I wondered if it hurts them, if they're scared. Stars don't feel pain, said. Oh, that's good then, smiled. I hope I don't hurt when I die either. I hope it's like going to sleep. That night couldn't sleep. He stood in his ship looking at Earth below, a small blue planet full of weak creatures who somehow thought their brief, painful lives mattered. and for the first time felt something he had forgotten: doubt. What if they were right? What if meaning didn't come from strength or immortality? What if it came from knowing you would die and choosing to love anyway, to hope anyway, to save strangers anyway? What if the weak weren't weak at all? What if he was? On the 10th day, made an announcement. He sent the message to every screen on Earth. His face appeared on televisions, computers, phones. Billions of humans stopped what they were doing to listen. "I will take one human with me into space," said. "I will show them the galaxy, the wonders and the horrors. If they remain sane, if they do not break, I will consider letting your species live. If they break, I will know humans are too weak for this universe." The message ended. Within an hour, 10,000 humans had volunteered. Soldiers wanted to prove human strength. Scientists wanted to see the stars. Adventurers wanted the glory. Captain Minu, now recovered, volunteered immediately, but chose none of them. He was 42 years old. He lived in a small village in province in the southern part of Korea. He was a farmer. He grew rice and vegetables. He had a wife and 2 children. He had never left Earth. He had never even left Korea. When the soldiers came to his farm, thought there was a mistake. "I didn't volunteer," he said. "Chose you anyway," the soldier said. "You have to come with us." His wife grabbed his arm. "No, choose someone else. My husband is not a warrior, he's not brave, he's just a farmer." But ship was already landing in their rice field. Stepped out and walked too. "You will come with me," said. "Why me?" asked. "I'm nobody, I'm not special." "Exactly," said. "The volunteers want to prove something. They would lie to themselves to stay strong. But you are honest. If you break, it means something. If you don't break, it means even more." Looked at his family. His children were crying, was shaking. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to stay home and tend his fields and live his simple life. But he saw the fear in their eyes, fear for all of Earth. And he realized that maybe, sometimes, ordinary people had to do extraordinary things. "How long will I be gone?" he asked. "However long it takes," said. Kissed his wife, hugged his children, then he followed into the ship. They left Earth's atmosphere in seconds, pressed his face to the window, watching his home planet shrink to the size of a marble. He felt sick, not from the movement but from the fear. He wasn't brave like Captain Minu. He was just a farmer. "Where are we going?" asked. "To the places that broke others," said. Their first stop was, as they approached the planet, could see cities made of bone and metal. The sky was red. "What is this place?" asked. "A world where the strong eat the weak," said, literally. They landed in the capital city, led through streets where creatures twice the size of humans hunted smaller beings, saw a child-sized alien being chased, saw it caught, saw it dragged into a building. Ran toward the building, caught him. "You cannot help," said. "But they're killing it." "Yes, that is their way. The weak are food, the strong survive. This is natural law in this part of space." "It's wrong," said. "Wrong," looked at him. "You eat plants, the plants die. You eat animals, the animals die. How is this different?" "Because," struggled to explain, "because they're people, they think, they feel, they matter." "So do plants and animals in their way," said. "You simply draw the line in a place that makes you comfortable. They draw it differently." Felt sick, not just from what he saw but from the question. Was right. Was all morality just lines drawn in convenient places? But then he thought of his children. If someone tried to eat them, would it matter where they drew the line? No, some things were just wrong. "I still say it's wrong," said quietly. They left, watched carefully, but the farmer didn't break. He was disturbed, yes. Horrified, yes, but not broken. Their next stop was the eternal tombs. It was a moon orbiting a dead star. On it stood monuments to every species the Dominion had conquered, trillions of names carved in stone that stretched to the horizon. Walked among them for hours. Each name was a life, a person with hopes and dreams and people they loved, all gone, all conquered by empire. Stopped at one monument. The species name was unpronounceable, but there were pictures. They looked like birds made of crystal, beautiful and delicate. They were artists, said, standing beside him. They made sculptures of light. They could capture emotions in solid form. I saw one once. It showed pure joy. Just looking at it made you smile. What happened to them? They refused to join the Dominion, so we destroyed them, all of them. Their art is lost. Only these names remain. Felt tears on his face. Not just for one species, but for all of them. For every name carved in stone. For every life erased. You did this, said. Yes. Why? Because they were weak. Because the galaxy is cruel. Because someone has to enforce order. Looked at, was it worth it, all these lives for order? Didn't answer. They returned to the ship in silence. Their final destination was the edge. It was a region of space where reality didn't work correctly, where the laws of physics broke down, where things existed that shouldn't exist. Why are we here? Asked. Because this is the test that breaks everyone, said. Every being I've brought here either went mad or lost themselves. If you survive this, I will know humans have something special. They exited the ship in protective suits, looked out at the edge and wanted to scream. Space itself was wrong there. Colors that didn't exist. Shapes that hurt to look at. Sounds that came from nowhere. He could feel reality trying to make sense of it and failing. In the distance, he saw things moving. Creatures that existed in more dimensions than his mind could process. They looked at him, and he felt himself starting to fall apart, to become nothing. Closed his eyes. He thought of his farm, his wife, his children. He thought of the simple things that made life worth living. The smell of rice cooking, the sound of rain on the roof, his daughter's laugh. He opened his eyes. The horror was still there, but it didn't break him. Because he had something to return to, something that mattered more than the infinite void. He turned to. The great commander stood there, immortal and powerful, but suddenly realized something. Had been alive for 50,000 years. He had seen 1,000,000,000 sunrises. He had conquered 10,000 worlds. But he had nothing to return to. No home, no family, no one waiting for him, just an endless existence of conquest and observation. You're lonely, said. Froze. Of all the things he expected, that wasn't it. What? You're lonely, said again. That's why you brought me here, not to test me, to see if someone could stand beside you in this place, to see if you didn't have to be alone in the horror. Stared at him. For 50,000 years he had been the strongest, the most feared, the unconquerable. No one had ever seen him as anything else. But this simple farmer from a backwater planet had seen the truth. Behind all the power and immortality was alone. Had been alone for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like not to be. We should return, said quietly. On the flight back to Earth, neither of them spoke, but something had changed, had tested, but somehow had tested him too. And wasn't sure he had passed. Returned to his farm, ran out when she saw them land, tears streaming down her face. She hugged her husband like she'd never let go, the children wrapped around his legs. Watched them, a simple reunion on a simple farm, but there was something in it that made his chest hurt in a way he didn't understand. Your husband passed every test, said Tu. He is stronger than warriors who have trained their whole lives. Looked at with pride. I always knew that, he just needed someone else to see it. Flew back to Seoul. He had been on Earth for 3 weeks now. His fleet waited in orbit. The Galactic Council sent messages every day asking for his judgment, but he had made no decision. Doctor met him at the landing pad. Captain Minyu was with her, fully healed now. Have you decided our fate? Asked. No, said, but I have one more request. Show me your greatest weapon. Minyu and looked at each other. We don't have weapons that could challenge you, Minyu said. Then show me whatever you think is your greatest achievement, said. The thing that makes humanity worth preserving. They took him to a building in the center of Seoul. It was called the Archive. Inside, Engineer waited for them. He was young, maybe 25, with excited eyes. This is it, asked, looking around. A building. Not just a building, said. It's humanity's memory, every book ever written, every song ever sung, every movie ever made, every diary, every letter, every email. If someone created it and wanted to preserve it, it's here. Why? Smiled, because we die. Humans live maybe 80 or 90 years. Then we're gone, but our ideas, our stories, our knowledge, that can live forever. This is how we become immortal. Walked into the main chamber. Screens covered every wall, millions of them. Each one could access any piece of human creation. Show me, said. His fingers flew over the controls. A screen lit up with a poem written 3,000 years ago by someone whose name was forgotten. It was about watching the sunset and knowing you would die someday but finding that beautiful anyway. Another screen showed a video of a father teaching his daughter to ride a bicycle. She fell. She cried. He picked her up and told her to try again. On the 5th try, she succeeded. Her laugh was pure joy. Another screen showed a song written by a soldier in a war. He knew he would probably die, but he wrote about hoping his children would live in a better world. Spent hours there, days. He consumed human culture like a man dying of thirst. He read about parents who worked 3 jobs so their children could go to school. He saw videos of strangers helping strangers in disasters. He found letters from people who died so others could live. He read a diary from a doctor during a plague. She knew she would get sick. She knew she would die. But she kept treating patients anyway because someone had to. He watched a recording of an old woman sitting with a young man who was dying of loneliness. She just held his hand and told him he mattered. She didn't know him. She just saw someone hurting and chose to care. On the 3rd day, found him reading a story about a grandmother. She had lived a simple life. She was never famous, never rich, never powerful, but she had raised 5 children after her husband died. She had helped her neighbors. She had volunteered at a school. When she died, 200 people came to her funeral. The story was written by her grandson. He wrote, "She never saved the world. She just made one small corner of it better every day. And in the end, that was everything." Stared at the words. For 50,000 years he had believed strength mattered, power mattered, conquest mattered. He had changed the shape of the galaxy. But had he ever made anything better? Or had he just left monuments to death? "Why do you save all of this?" asked. "Most of these people were ordinary. Why does their story matter?" Sat beside him. Because every life matters. Because even ordinary people do extraordinary things just by choosing to love, to hope, to care. We save their stories so they're not forgotten, so their lives meant something. But they're dead. What does it matter if they're remembered? "It matters to us," said simply. "We're not them, but we're like them. When I read about that grandmother who raised 5 children alone, I think I can do hard things too. When I see that doctor who chose to help even when it meant dying, I think I can be brave. They give us strength." Was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I want to see more." For 2 more days, he read and watched and listened. He learned about humans who failed and tried again, about people who were hurt and chose not to hurt others, about those who had every reason to give up but kept going anyway. He found a recording from a philosophy professor named. She had died 10 years ago, but her lectures were preserved. In one, she asked the question, "If you live forever, when do you truly live?" The mayfly lives for 1 day, but it spends that day dancing in the sunlight, finding a mate, creating life. Does it matter that it dies? Or does it matter that it lived fully in the time it had? Perhaps mortality isn't a weakness. Perhaps it's what gives life meaning. Replayed that lecture 5 times. On the 6th day in the archive, Captain Minu found him. "Have you made your decision?" Turned off the screens. "Tell me something. You knew you couldn't defeat me. You knew I could kill you in seconds, but you smiled when you lost. Why?" Minu thought about it. "Because I tried. Because even though I failed, I stood up for my people, I think. I think that matters more than winning. Trying matters. Caring matters. Even if we're weak, even if we fail, the fact that we try to be better, that means something." "You believe that?" "I have to," Minu said. "Otherwise, what's the point? If only the strong matter, then most of us are worthless. But I've seen ordinary people do amazing things. I've seen weak people be braver than the strongest warriors. Strength isn't everything." Stood up. "I need to think. I will give you my answer tomorrow." That night climbed to the top of the tallest mountain in Korea. He looked up at the stars. His fleet waited there. He could give the order right now. In an hour, Earth would be ash. But he thought of, standing at the edge of reality, holding onto his humanity because he had something to return to. He thought of, standing between him and the children because someone had to. He thought of, running into burning buildings to save strangers. He thought of a grandmother who was never famous but made 200 people's lives better. He thought of dying at 7 years old, asking if stars hurt when they die. He thought of a philosophy professor asking when someone truly lives. For the first time in 50,000 years, remembered his own life before he became immortal. He had been mortal once. He had had a family, friends, a home. And then he had made a deal with an ancient power. Immortality in exchange for serving as the enforcer of order in the galaxy. He had thought it was worth it. What was a life of service compared to living forever? But he had been alive for 50,000 years, and he couldn't remember the last time he had felt alive. These humans lived for maybe 80 years, but they were more alive in those brief years than he had been in. Because they knew they would die, because their time was limited, because every moment mattered in a way it couldn't matter to someone who would live forever. Closed his eyes and felt something break inside him, or maybe something healing. He wasn't sure which. But he knew what his answer would be. The Galactic Council chamber was packed. Representatives from 1,000 species waited in their seats, watching the screen. On Earth, every human stopped to watch. The moment had come. Stood in the center of the council chamber. His image was broadcast across the galaxy. His fleet hung in Earth's orbit behind him, 2,000 ships ready to execute his judgment. The council speaker, the tall creature with 4 arms, spoke first. "Supreme Commander, you have observed the humans for nearly a month. What is your judgment? Should Earth be granted autonomy, or should it be destroyed?" Every being in the chamber held their breath. On Earth, Minu stood with his crew, held her tablet so tight her knuckles were white. Watched from his farm, his family gathered around him. Watched with her students. Watched from his fire station. Little watched from her hospital bed. Was silent for a long moment, then he spoke. "I grant Earth full autonomy. Humanity will be protected under my personal authority. Any species that threatens them will answer to me." The chamber erupted. Aliens shouted in surprise, some in joy, some in confusion. The council speaker banged his gavel for silence. "This is unexpected," the speaker said. "We are grateful, of course, but may we know your reasoning?" "No," said. He turned to leave, but then he stopped. He looked back at the camera, knowing billions were watching. "I have one more announcement," said. "Effective immediately, I am resigning as Supreme Commander of the Dominion." Now the chaos was absolute. Aliens jumped from their seats. Some shouted, some fainted. The council speaker's 4 arms waved frantically. "You cannot resign," the speaker said. "You are eternal. You are the foundation of galactic order." "I am tired," said simply. "I have served for 50,000 years. It is enough." He ended the transmission before anyone could respond. That night met with Captain Minu and Doctor one final time. They met in the same square where he had first landed. The city was celebrating around them, but the three of them stood in quiet conversation. "Why did you save us?" Minyu asked. "Looked up at the stars. Because you reminded me of something I had forgotten. That strength isn't about never falling. It's about choosing to stand back up. You are weak compared to the galaxy, but you stand up anyway. You hope anyway. You love anyway. That is a strength I lost long ago." "What will you do now?" asked. "I have coordinates to 1,000 worlds I once conquered," said. He handed her a data chip. "They are ready to be freed. I cannot undo what I did, but perhaps you can help them rebuild." "Why us?" "Because you understand something the rest of the galaxy has forgotten. That the weak deserve protection. That every life matters. You will do better than I did." Minyu took the chip. "Thank you." Shook his head. "Don't thank me. I destroyed those worlds. This is not a gift. It is a debt I can never repay." He started to walk back to his ship, but called after him. "What about you? Where will you go?" Stopped. "I don't know, perhaps nowhere. Perhaps I will just be. For the first time in 50,000 years I have no purpose. No mission. It is terrifying, but also freeing." "Will we see you again?" Minyu asked. "I don't know," said. "But if you do, do not call me commander. That life is over." He boarded his ship. As it lifted off, he transmitted one more message to his fleet, to the Dominion, to everyone who had followed him. "You are free," the message said. "I release you from your oaths. The Dominion is ended. Return to your homes. Find your own paths. I am sorry for the pain I caused. I cannot fix it, but I will not cause more." Then he was gone. His ship vanished into the darkness of space. Within a day, the fleet scattered. Some ships went home to worlds they hadn't seen in centuries. Some stayed to help Earth. Some formed new alliances. The Dominion, which had ruled for 10,000 years, collapsed overnight. Across the galaxy, freed worlds celebrated. Some told stories of helping them in secret, repairing damage, leaving supplies. Others said they saw him on a quiet planet, living as a farmer. Some claimed he had died peacefully in his sleep, finally mortal again. The truth was never known, had disappeared without a trace. But his impact remained. 3 years later stood in the courtyard of the Space Academy. She was 10 years old now. The disease that should have killed her had mysteriously vanished 6 months after left. The doctors couldn't explain it, but knew. Somehow she knew. She was going to be an astronaut. She would see the stars. She would visit those freed worlds and help them rebuild. At the ceremony, reporters asked her if she was afraid of the dangerous galaxy. Smiled. "Even the strongest among them learned from us. What's there to be afraid of?" On a farm in province worked his fields. He told his children stories about his journey into space, about the horrors he saw, about the loneliness he recognized. His children would grow up understanding that even the weak could teach the strong, that even ordinary people mattered. In Seoul, taught her students about kindness and courage, about standing up for others even when you're afraid. Her students would grow up to be the diplomats and explorers who would reshape the galaxy. Captain Minyu led the mission to free the conquered worlds. With at his side, they visited world after world, offering help with no strings attached, teaching other species what humans had taught, that strength without compassion was just cruelty. The galaxy changed slowly, but it changed. And somewhere in a quiet corner of space, there might have been a simple house on a simple planet. And in that house, someone who was no longer a commander sat watching the sunset. For the first time in 50,000 years, he felt the weight of mortality. He could die now. Someday he would. And that meant the days he had left mattered. Every sunrise was a gift. He thought of a 7-year-old girl who asked if stars hurt when they die. He thought of a farmer who saw his loneliness. He thought of a teacher who stood in front of children. He thought of a rescue worker who saved strangers. He thought of a grandmother who made one corner of the world better every day. And he understood. Finally, after all this time, he understood. Life didn't matter because it lasted forever. Life mattered because it didn't. The sunset was beautiful. He had seen 1 billion sunsets on 1,000 worlds, but this one was different. Because it might be one of his last, and that made it precious. He smiled. And somewhere across the vast darkness of space, humanity continued its journey, no longer afraid, no longer alone, carrying with them the lesson they had taught the galaxy's strongest warrior. That the light shines in the dark, that hope matters most when things seem hopeless, that even the small and weak can change the universe. Just by choosing to stand up, just by choosing to care, just by choosing to be human. The strongest among them had confronted humanity, and humanity had shown him what true strength was. Not the power to destroy, but the courage to live, to love, to hope. Even when you know it won't last forever. Especially then. The stars watched, the galaxy turned, and in the vast emptiness of space, a small blue planet full of ordinary people continued to shine. Because they had something even immortality couldn't give. They had meaning. And that, in the end, was everything.